They called me selfish for not giving my brother my house. Grandma's inheritance bomb changed everything. Hey friends. Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to us. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing one of these, but here I am at 2 a.m., stress-eating cereal in my kitchen while my phone buzzes with passive-aggressive texts from my mother. I'm David, 28, and I apparently committed the cardinal sin of buying a house before my younger brother Kyle got his life together. Let me give you the backstory. 3 years ago, my grandmother Sophie helped me with a down payment on a house. Not a handout. We have a legal agreement where I'm paying her back with interest, and she insisted on doing it properly through lawyers. Grandma Sophie doesn't believe in free rides, something she's drilled into all of us since we were kids. Work for what you want, she'd say, or you'll never value what you have. The house isn't massive, but it's beautiful. 4 bedrooms, a renovated kitchen, and most importantly, a gorgeous backyard with a gazebo and garden that I've spent countless weekends perfecting. I work in software development and have been saving aggressively since college, living with roommates in cramped apartments while Kyle was out finding himself through 6 changed majors and multiple gap years. Kyle finally graduated last year with a degree in communications. He's been working part-time at a marketing firm while living with our parents rent-free. 3 months ago, he proposed to his girlfriend Ashley. I was genuinely happy for them. Ashley's sweet, has a good head on her shoulders, and honestly, I thought she might be the influence Kyle needed to finally grow up. Then came the family dinner 2 weeks ago. Mom had invited everyone over, which should have been my first red flag. She only does formal family dinners when she's about to orchestrate something. We were halfway through dessert when she clasped her hands together with that smile that means she's about to volunteer someone for something. So, David, she began, Kyle and Ashley have been looking at wedding venues, and they're just so expensive these days. I nodded, mouth full of pie, not seeing where this was going. Yeah, the wedding industry is pretty crazy with pricing. Kyle jumped in then, leaning forward with this eager expression. That's actually what we wanted to talk to you about. Your backyard would be perfect for our wedding. I set down my fork. You want to have your wedding in my backyard? It would save us $15,000, Ashley added quietly. She looked uncomfortable, playing with her napkin. 15,000. I nearly choked. What kind of venues are you looking at? Mom waved her hand dismissively. The point is, family helps family. And your yard is just sitting there. I use my yard. I host barbecues. I garden. It's not just sitting there. Dad finally spoke up, his tone that particular brand of disappointed that he'd perfected over years of parenting. David, don't be selfish. It's one day. Here's where I should have been suspicious. Kyle was being way too quiet, just watching me with this calculated expression. But I was focused on the guilt trip happening in stereo from our parents. How many people? I asked. Just 150, Kyle said, like that was nothing. Small, intimate. 150 people is not small. Mom's voice turned sharp. David Michael, your brother is only getting married once. The least you can do is help out. After everything this family has done for you. What exactly has the family done for me? I shot back. I paid for college myself. I've been working since I was 16. I pay Grandma Sophie back every month for the down payment loan. You wouldn't even have that house without family help, Mom countered. It was a loan. With interest. That I'm paying back. The argument went in circles for an hour. Every time I brought up a practical concern, liability insurance, setup costs, the wear on my property, parking for 150 people, it got dismissed. Kyle promised they'd handle everything, rent tents, hire their own setup crew, get event insurance. Ashley kept apologizing with her eyes while insisting it would be no trouble at all. Finally, exhausted and surrounded by disappointed faces, I caved. Fine. But I need everything in writing. The insurance, the rental agreements, everything. Kyle agreed immediately, too quickly. Mom beamed like she'd just negotiated world peace. Dad nodded approvingly. Ashley looked relieved but still uncomfortable. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've received exactly 0 documentation about insurance or contracts. What I have received is Kyle showing up at random times to measure things with Ashley. They've brought her parents over twice without asking. Her mother walked through my house, the inside of my house, talking about how charming it is and how perfect for a young couple starting out. Then yesterday happened. I came home early from work with a migraine. Kyle's car was in my driveway, which was annoying but not surprising given his recent habit of treating my property like a public park. I walked in through the front door to find Kyle, Ashley, and both sets of parents in my living room. They had notebooks out and were deep in discussion. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom jumped up. "Oh, David. We were just discussing logistics." "Logistics for what?" Kyle cleared his throat. "Well, we were thinking. After the wedding, Ashley and I will need some time to save up for our own place." My stomach dropped. "Okay. And you have all this space?" "No." "You haven't even heard the proposal," Dad interjected. "I don't need to." "The answer is no." Ashley's mother, Patricia, smiled that condescending smile that made me want to scream. "David, surely you're not going to make newlyweds struggle when you have empty bedrooms." "They're not empty. One's my office. One's my gym. One's a guest room for when my friends visit." "Friends can stay in hotels," Mom said dismissively. "So can newlyweds," I shot back. Kyle stood up, his face getting red. This is typical David. Always selfish, always thinking he's better than everyone. "Because I don't want you living in my house rent-free indefinitely?" "It wouldn't be indefinite," Kyle protested. "Just until we save enough." "How much are you saving per month?" I asked. Silence. "What's your timeline?" More silence. "What's your budget? Have you looked at apartments? Have you even tried?" Ashley finally spoke up. "We thought family would be more understanding." "Understanding of what?" "Your complete lack of planning. You're getting married in 4 months and you don't have a place to live." Patricia huffed. "Young people these days have it much harder than your generation did." "I'm 3 years older than Kyle. We're the same generation." The argument escalated from there. Words were said. Mom cried. Dad called me heartless. Kyle stormed out with Ashley trailing behind, looking embarrassed. Both sets of parents left with barely concealed fury. I've spent the last 2 days getting texts about how I'm ruining Kyle's wedding, destroying family harmony, and being a selfish miser. Mom has sent me 3 articles about the housing crisis affecting young couples. Dad texted me a Bible verse about generosity. The wedding is in 4 months. I feel like I'm being set up. Like if I let them use the yard, I'll never get rid of them. Kyle has that look he gets when he's planning something, and the whole measuring thing feels like he's already mentally moving in. I don't know what to do. I can't afford to have them as permanent house guests. I work from home half the week and need my space. I like my quiet life. I've worked hard for this house and I don't want it turned into Kyle's crash pad. But the family pressure is intense. Mom has already told extended family about the backyard wedding. Aunts are calling me to say how wonderful it is that I'm helping. The guilt is suffocating. What do I do? Update 1, 1 week later. I wasn't expecting this to blow up the way it did. Thank you all for the reality check. Your comments ranged from "run for the hills" to "change the locks now," and honestly, you were all right. But none of you predicted what actually happened. 3 days after my original post, Grandma Sophie called me. Now, Grandma Sophie doesn't do social media, but she has what she calls her information network. Basically, her bridge club and church friends who know everything about everyone. "David," she said without preamble, "we need to talk. Come to my house. Bring your laptop and any emails or texts about this wedding situation." Grandma Sophie lives in a pristine Victorian she's owned for 40 years. When I arrived, she had tea set out, the good china, which meant serious business. She was sitting in her favorite chair, reading glasses perched on her nose, looking through a manila folder. "Sit," she commanded. I sat. "I hear Kyle wants to use your house for his wedding," she began. "Mom told you." She gave me a look over her glasses. "Your mother told Patricia Henderson at book club, who told Margaret Chen at Pilates, who told me at bridge. I know everything, David, including the part about them moving in after." I slumped in my chair. I don't know how to get out of it. The whole family is against me. The whole family. She pulled out a document from her folder. "Including the person who helped you buy that house?" "Of course not you, Grandma." "Good. Because I have some things to say. First, show me the insurance documentation Kyle provided." "He hasn't sent any." "The contracts for the tent rentals?" "Nothing." "The agreement about their temporary stay after the wedding?" "They haven't put anything in writing." She nodded slowly, like she expected this. "David, do you know why I helped you with that down payment and not Kyle?" "Because I had stable employment and good credit." Partially. But also because you understand the value of work. Kyle. She sighed. Kyle has been enabled his entire life. Your parents mean well, but they've created a monster. And now they want you to be part of the problem. She pulled out another document. This is my will. Grandma, I don't want to talk about. Quiet. This is relevant. She opened it to a marked page. I've left provisions for all my grandchildren. Equal amounts, with conditions. They receive their inheritance in stages, based on achieving certain milestones. Maintaining employment, contributing to retirement accounts, things that show financial responsibility. I nodded, not sure where this was going. Kyle is already failing those conditions. He's been working part-time for a year with no move toward full-time employment. He has no savings. He's planning a wedding he can't afford and expecting others to subsidize it. She set down the will. If he moves into your house, I'll consider that a failure of the independence milestone. He'll forfeit a significant portion of his inheritance. Grandma, I can't be responsible for. You're not. He is. But there's more. Her expression turned steely. Anyone who enables this behavior by providing free housing or excessive financial support will also affect their own standing in my will. My jaw dropped. You'd disinherit Mom and Dad? Not disinherit, but reduce significantly. Your parents have their own retirement to think about. They shouldn't be sacrificing it to enable Kyle's poor planning. She stood up and walked to her desk, pulling out her phone. Now, I think it's time for a family meeting. Grandma, no, that'll just make things worse. David, I'm 82 years old. I've worked my entire life, saved carefully, invested wisely. That money is meant to help my family, but not to enable laziness or entitlement. It's time Kyle learned that. She called Mom right there, putting it on speaker. Susan, it's Mom. We need to have a family meeting about Kyle's wedding. My house, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Everyone attends or I'll assume they're not interested in remaining beneficiaries. Mom sputtered. Mom, what does the will have to do with? Everything. 2 p.m., Susan. Tell Kyle and Ashley to bring their wedding budget and their post-wedding housing plan. Written down, with numbers. She hung up and turned to me. You need to stop letting them guilt you. That house is yours. You're paying for it. You maintain it. No one else has any claim to it. The family meeting the next day was something else. Kyle showed up looking confident, probably thinking he could charm Grandma like he did our parents. Ashley looked nervous. Mom and Dad seemed confused. I sat in the corner, trying to be invisible. Grandma Sophie started without preamble. Kyle, show me your wedding budget. We're still working on it. So you have no budget. Ashley, what's your financial contribution to this wedding? Ashley went red. My parents are helping with some things. Specific numbers, please. It became painfully clear that they had no real plan. The wedding was being planned on wishes and assumptions that family would cover everything. And your housing plan after marriage? Grandma continued. Kyle straightened. We thought we'd stay with David for a few months. David has declined. What's your alternative? That's not fair. Kyle burst out. He has all that space. That he pays for. What's your plan B? Silence. Grandma pulled out her will. Let me be clear. If you move into David's house, you forfeit 30% of your inheritance. If Susan and Robert enable this by pressuring David or subsidizing your living expenses beyond reasonable wedding gifts, they forfeit 20% of theirs. The room exploded. Mom gasped. Dad went pale. Kyle jumped up, shouting about fairness and manipulation. Ashley looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Grandma remained calm. I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm setting conditions on my money. You want to be independent adults? Act like it. You want a wedding? Plan one you can afford. You want a place to live? Get jobs and save money. This is David's fault. Kyle turned on me. You complained to her. I didn't say anything, I protested. She heard from her bridge club. Grandma stood, all 5 feet of her radiating authority. David's fault? David who worked full-time through college? David who saved for years while living with roommates? David who took a loan, not a gift, and pays it back every month? That David. Kyle deflated. Here's what's going to happen, Grandma continued. Kyle, you and Ashley will plan a wedding you can actually afford. You will find your own housing. You will not guilt, manipulate, or pressure David about his property. If I hear otherwise, the consequences will be severe." She turned to my parents. "Susan, Robert, you will stop enabling Kyle. He's 25 years old. It's time he grew up. And if I hear one more word about David being selfish for not sacrificing his home and peace for Kyle's poor planning, you'll be having your next family gathering without me." The meeting ended with Kyle storming out, Ashley apologizing quietly to me, and my parents looking shell-shocked. Grandma Sophie hugged me on my way out. "Stand your ground, David. You've earned what you have. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for that." It's been 3 days since the meeting. The family group chat is silent. Mom has called once, trying to convince me that Grandma is being unreasonable, but her heart wasn't in it. I think the threat to their inheritance finally made them realize they were asking too much. Kyle hasn't contacted me at all. Ashley sent a text apologizing for the pressure and saying they're looking into smaller venues. I still feel guilty, but also relieved. Having Grandma Sophie in my corner makes all the difference. Sometimes it takes the family matriarch to put things in perspective. Update 2, 3 months later. This will be my final update, and I'm happy to say it has a surprisingly positive ending. After Grandma Sophie's intervention, things were tense for about a month. Kyle didn't speak to me at all. Mom and Dad were cold but stopped the guilt trips. Family dinners were cancelled indefinitely. I focused on work and tried not to think about the upcoming wedding. Then, about 6 weeks ago, Ashley called me. She asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. I was hesitant but agreed. She looked exhausted when she showed up, stress written all over her face. "David, I need to apologize properly," she began. "I knew what Kyle was planning was wrong. The whole moving in thing. That was always his plan, from the moment we got engaged. He said you'd cave because you always did when your parents pressured you." I stirred my coffee, not sure what to say. "Your grandmother's meeting was a wake-up call," she continued. "Not just about the wedding, but about Kyle and responsibility in general. We've been doing some serious talking and therapy." "Therapy?" She nodded. "My condition for not calling off the wedding. Kyle needs to understand why his entitlement is a problem. Why his family dynamics are unhealthy." It turned out Ashley had been having doubts for months. Kyle's inability to plan, save, or take responsibility was wearing on her. The wedding had become a symbol of all their problems. Kyle making grand plans he couldn't afford, assuming others would handle the details, getting angry when reality didn't match his expectations. "He's getting better," she said. "Slowly. The therapist is helping him understand how your parents' enabling hurt him in the long run. He's even admitted that moving into your house would have been a disaster. He would have never left." A week after that coffee, Kyle called me. It was awkward, stilted, but he asked to meet in person. I agreed, curious more than anything. He showed up at my door looking uncomfortable but determined. "Can I come in?" We sat in my living room, the same one where he'd tried to plan his takeover of my house. "I owe you an apology," he stuttered. "A real one, not the half-assed kind Mom makes us do. I was an entitled jerk. I expected you to solve my problems because that's what everyone's always done for me." I let him talk. He explained how the therapy was helping him see patterns, how he'd always been rescued from his mistakes, never facing real consequences. How he'd resented me for being the responsible one, while simultaneously expecting me to share everything I'd earned. "I'm working full-time now," he added. "Took a second job bartending weekends. Ashley and I have an actual budget. We've saved $3,000 in 6 weeks." "That's great, Kyle. We've also scaled back the wedding. Way back. 50 people, Ashley's uncle's restaurant. He's giving us a deal, but we're paying fair price, not family freebies." He paused. "I wanted to ask, and you can say no, would you still be willing to come? As a guest, not a venue." I agreed. It felt like a olive branch worth taking. The wedding was last weekend. It was small, intimate, actually beautiful. Kyle had written his own vows, including a line about building our life together through work and partnership, not expectations and entitlement. Ashley cried. Hell, I teared up a little. At the reception, Grandma Sophie gave a speech. She talked about the value of struggle, how the things we work for mean more than the things we're given. She looked directly at Kyle and said, "I'm proud of you for choosing the harder path. It'll make you stronger." During the father-son dance, they modified it to include all parents. Kyle pulled me aside. "I need to thank you." "For what?" "For saying no. If you'd let us move in, I'd still be that entitled asshole waiting for everyone else to fix my life. Ashley probably would have left me eventually. This. He gestured around the modest but lovely reception. This is ours. We earned it. Mom and Dad have also come around. Dad admitted he was embarrassed by their behavior, pushing me to sacrifice what I'd worked for. Mom tearfully apologized last week, saying she realized she'd been hurting both her sons, me by not respecting my boundaries, Kyle by not letting him grow up. The biggest shock came yesterday. Grandma Sophie invited me over for tea. She had papers spread out on her table, her will and related documents. I'm making some changes, she announced. Not punitive ones. Protective ones. She's restructuring the inheritance with what her lawyer calls achievement-based distributions. Each grandchild gets their inheritance in stages based on life milestones, but there are also protections. No one can be pressured to share or loan their inheritance to family members. Any attempt by one beneficiary to coerce another results in forfeiture of their own inheritance. It's the David Clause, she said with a wink, making sure no one gets bullied into giving up what they've earned. But the best part? She's created an additional fund specifically for matching down payments on homes, but only for family members who can show 2 years of steady employment and savings. The Kyle Fund, she called it. For when he's actually ready, not when he thinks he deserves it. Kyle and Ashley found their own apartment last month. A small 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. They were so proud showing me photos of their second-hand furniture and DIY decorations. They're hosting Thanksgiving this year, their first as a married couple. They want to prove they can adult properly. Sitting here now in my peaceful house, my quiet study where I'm writing this, I'm grateful for how things turned out. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is say no. Sometimes families need that one person who won't bend, who forces everyone to face reality. Grandma Sophie called me yesterday with one last bit of wisdom. Never feel guilty for protecting what you've earned, David. And never apologize for forcing people to grow up. You might have saved Kyle's marriage before it even started. I think she's right. Kyle and Ashley seem stronger now, united in building something together rather than expecting it to be handed to them. My relationship with my parents is more honest. They're learning to respect my boundaries. And I have my home, my peace, and the knowledge that I stood my ground when it mattered. To everyone who told me to stay strong in the original post, thank you. You gave me the courage to hold the line until Grandma Sophie arrived like the cavalry. And to anyone facing similar family pressure, remember that no is a complete sentence. Family helping family doesn't mean family taking advantage of family. You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they're perfectly capable of buying their own matches. The wedding was beautiful. The marriage looks like it'll last. And my house remains my sanctuary. Sometimes the best gifts aren't the ones freely given, but the boundaries firmly held. Final reflection. Looking back on this whole saga, I realize how much family dynamics can warp our sense of normal. For years, I thought it was my job to be the responsible one, to have my life together so I could help everyone else. Kyle thought it was his birthright to be helped, to have problems solved for him. We were both wrong. The therapy Kyle's been attending has helped him, but I started seeing someone too. Turns out, being the responsible child comes with its own baggage. The guilt, the obligation, the inability to say no without feeling like a failure. My therapist calls it eldest child syndrome. Even though I'm not the eldest, I just took on that role. Kyle sent me a text last night. Just a simple, thanks for being a good brother by not being a good enabler. I think that sums it up perfectly. Grandma Sophie turned 83 last week. At her birthday dinner, held at Kyle and Ashley's apartment, which she declared perfectly adequate and properly earned, she pulled all the grandchildren aside. I won't be around forever, she said, matter of fact as always. But I want you all to remember something. Family isn't about what you can take from each other. It's about what you can build alongside each other. David has his house. Kyle has his apartment. Neither owes the other anything except respect and genuine support, not enablement, support. Ashley is pregnant. They told us at the birthday dinner. Kyle immediately said, and before anyone offers, we've already started a nursery fund and we're looking into larger apartments we can afford on our own. The growth is real. My house has hosted several family gatherings since the wedding. Kyle and Ashley come as guests. They bring dishes to share. They help clean up. They leave at the end of the night to go to their own home. It's how it should be. Mom has started asking my permission before inviting people over to my place. Dad has taken up gardening and asks for advice about my yard instead of treating it like communal property. Boundaries, it turns out, make for better relationships. The extended family has largely backed off since word spread about Grandma Sophie's will modifications. Amazing how the prospect of losing money makes people reconsider their entitlement. The aunts who were calling me wonderful for helping with the wedding now call me sensible for maintaining boundaries. The narrative shifted once the matriarch spoke. If you're reading this and facing similar pressure, here's what I learned. 1. Your achievements are yours. You earned them. You don't owe anyone access to them. 2. Helping family doesn't mean hurting yourself. 3. No is a complete sentence. 4. Enablers think they're helping, but they're actually hurting. 5. Sometimes the youngest generation needs the oldest to see clearly. 6. Boundaries aren't mean. They're necessary. 7. The guilt is temporary. The resentment from giving in lasts much longer. 8. Family members who only value you for what you can provide aren't acting like family. 9. It's okay to protect your peace. 10. True growth comes from facing consequences, not being rescued from them. Kyle and I are closer now than we were before this whole mess. There's honesty between us that didn't exist when he was trying to manipulate me and I was trying to avoid confrontation. He respects what I've built because he's building something himself. Last week, he asked for advice about investing. Not money, just advice. I spent 3 hours showing him budgeting apps and explaining index funds. He took notes. He's opened his first retirement account. Baby steps, but his own steps. The house remains my sanctuary. My office is still my office. My gym is still my gym. My guest room hosts friends who appreciate the space. My backyard hosts gatherings where everyone contributes and no one assumes ownership. This whole experience taught me that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is refuse to be their safety net. Kyle needed to fall to learn he could catch himself. I needed to stand firm to learn I had the right to my own life. Grandma Sophie, she already knew all of this. She was just waiting for the rest of us to catch up. Family helps family, she said at her birthday dinner, but first, family must help themselves. Words to live by. Thank you to everyone who followed this story. Your support, advice, and reality checks made all the difference. Sometimes internet strangers see more clearly than family members blinded by dynamics decades in the making. My house is peaceful tonight. Kyle and Ashley are in their apartment, probably planning their nursery. Mom and Dad are respecting boundaries. Grandma Sophie is probably playing bridge and gathering intelligence on other family dramas. And me? I'm in my study, in my house, living my life on my terms. It's a good feeling. One I earned. One I'll keep.